So do you like a press release that comes through that has potential referrals on it? So if you want to know more information, here
Crucial.
are 5 clients you can call.
But yeah, it just speeds the whole process up. And also, from your perspective, it means you're, and I shouldn't really admit this, but you're actually directing the journalists who to speak to. And so it's good for you guys. It's good for us in the sense that we're rushed for time, and don't always know, particularly if it's a news story, where to go to speak to other people involved. And so it's a handy place to start. It shouldn't be the only place, but it's a handy place to start that sort of a journalist can take it forward. But from your perspective, you're sort of directing who the journalist speaks to.
Yep, fantastic. Okay, who has their sheets of the template of the PR, the press release? Yep, you might want to pull those out. We're going to quickly work through those. So Tony, tell us about this structure. If you don't have these sheets, we'll get them to you at the end of the night. Work us through this structure of this template that you've got here.
Okay, this is something I put together, how did I say it in the cooking show? Something I prepared earlier. It's as rigid, I suppose, as you want to make it. I mean, there's obviously flexibility in how you do things, but the first thing obviously is your headline, and that goes at the top. Although above that, people often state the obvious and put media release or for immediate release or whatever, or under embargo, which is a whole separate discussion, I suppose. But then your headline, which ideally should be just one line, if you can keep it to one line. You don't want like a whole paragraph as your headline. Keep it short and sharp, but getting straight to the crux of what the story is about as best as you can in the headline. Write it. There's different views on this, but it's preferable to write it in sentence case, similar to what you'd see in a newspaper, than all in uppercase, because that's that just comes across as too strong and it just creates the wrong impression, I suppose. Make it active, keep it lively, and I think I've said that if you don't get this right, they're probably not going to make it to the first paragraph. Except for Peter, who doesn't read headlines.
I think it's really important before...
Grab you there. Right. Oh, sorry.
I think it's really important before you embark on doing that to make sure that you know that you're writing for the outlet that you're approaching, rather than a one-size-fits-all media release. And there are other tricks to the trade as well too. I mean, like, it doesn't specifically have to be about you. If you're a chocolate company, there might be an international trend. Stop the press. Chocolate is not an aphrodisiac.
What? What are you trying to say?
That would be a surprising thing if you heard it. But then if we had someone here who was able to comment on the local chocolate industry, that helps as well too. But if you can start with your outlet, then you can think more broadly. And another example, when I was working in my PR life, I was working for an architecture company, wanted to get something in Boss magazine. For the life of them, couldn't get in Boss, and we're sitting having a meeting. And he turned around and he said, I was thinking the other day that architects are the new art patrons, because we decide what art goes in the BHP lobby. And that's who commissions big artworks these days. And then he went back to eating his sandwich or doing what he was doing. And my job at that point was to say, that's a really interesting angle. It used to be royalty that commissioned art. Now it's a large corporation. Why don't we go to Boss magazine and say, you know what? Architects are the new art patrons. And Boss said, what a fantastic angle. Who did they go to speak to? And comment on it? Our client.
Yep.
So it's a broader picture, imagining the outlet. What's a story that's of interest to you that would appear in that outlet?
Yep. And would some of that information go in our lead paragraph?
Well, that would be the angle. So you've picked your outlet and then you've picked your angle, and if you get that right, you really got to hope that the rest of the release will look after itself.
Yep. Peter, how do we go about, I guess, getting a good angle? Should we be talking with other people? Should we be drinking and then coming up with it, or how do we brainstorm this?
I've got no idea.
Well, thank you for coming along tonight, everyone. It's been great.
No, well, I guess sort of, it is sort of targeting or deciding what media you want, first off. And I guess sort of just talking to people and when you're talking to family or friends about what you do, about your day, and when you're expressing to them what you do, this happened, what you're actually doing is telling a story. And you're telling what you think is the most important part of that story first. And it's the same with press releases. And so in that sense, so I've got a point here a bit. But
I think you're saying exactly what needs to be said.
yeah, I guess, yeah. And well, that's what it is. I mean, it's choosing your media outlet that you want. And when you're talking to friends, you're getting an idea of how to sell that story to friends, basically.
And how they respond to it.
Yeah, and that's how you sort of sell it to the media as well.
Yep, okay. So the rest of the media template, we've got your lead paragraph goes in there. Under that, your body text. Now, what makes up the body text, Tony?
The body text is really the rest of your release that goes with the lead paragraph that's really meant to be describing what it's all about. And I put in there, follow the inverted pyramid principle. Does everyone know what I mean by that? Basically, picture a pyramid that's turned upside down. Really, your strongest material should be up higher, going down to your information which is of lesser importance, but having said that, not irrelevant. So don't put anything irrelevant in your release, but information that can be further down in the release that supports the story or the press release needs to be further down, obviously. What else have I said there? Keep your release ideally to a page. If you have to go over a page, sometimes that's not the be-all and end-all, but journalists don't have a lot of time to read a 3-page press release, as James was saying, so try and sort of keep it to 1 page if you can.
Yep, fantastic. So under that, about your company and then your contact details. Peter, have you ever had a press release with no contact details?
I have. Yeah.
Very often?
Once, and unfortunately it was a good story.
Okay.
It took me forever to find the company.
Yep.
Because then you have to go search on the net and all that type of stuff.
Yep. Which you don't really want to have to do.
No, and I expressed my displeasure when I found them.
Okay. All right, now this brings us to the next section. Now we're going a little bit over time, but has the information been useful so far? Yep, okay. We won't be too much longer. So, 5 questions in 5 minutes. James, don't look at the questions yet, you're cheating. Number 1, what is the best press release you have ever read, James?
You had to go me first, and I haven't had a chance to look at it. I can't think of one. I honestly can't. It's did anyone hear that the Dalai Lama has a big gambling problem?
No.
He loves to bet. I got that in an email the other day, and I did go, what?
Let's print that.
But I'm having a lot of trouble thinking of one that jumped out at me. But we do have we generally do have a thing called the Cool Company Awards where applications come in.
Yep.
And there's a fine line between a stunt and a gimmick.
Yeah.
And an interesting story. We've all heard about, was it Vodafone that had the streaker that ran across the thing, and it was a PR disaster for them. But we have a thing called the Cool Company Awards. And I remember in its first year, so people submit their applications to demonstrate why they're cool. And one year, one application arrived in a sealed Glad bag frozen in a block of ice. Because they were the coolest company. They were ice cold.
That's pretty cool.
And we had to put it in the sink for a day or two to get the application out. So that was.
And was it a good application?
It was a terrible application. They
didn't spend more time on that.
The first cut.
Peter, what's the best press release you've ever seen?
Thankfully I was second, so I could think of one. The best one I ever got was actually press release over about 2 weeks, and it came in stages. So the first stage you got was this small box, silver, very distinctive, wrapped with a bow tie, and you open it up, and there was I know this is graph, but there was a small little silver calculator in it. A few days later, another box turned up, and there was something else, ribbon, something else small, silver inside. Still didn't know who it was from. There was no card, there was no nothing. Happened again, third time. Totally perplexed. Didn't know who this was coming from. But I was fascinated to find out.
You're thinking I've got a stalker. Finally!
Someone who's given me something. And the fourth time it turned up, came with a press release, and it all fell into place. And I was quite excited by it, because suddenly I discovered something that I didn't know who this press release was from, and that was exciting.
And did it get printed?
No, it's American Express.
Okay. There you go. So not all gimmicks work. Tony, what's the worst press release you've ever seen?
I was going to give some examples of good ones.
Give us your worst.
Okay, worst ones. Well, the worst ones I've seen are ones where I've just read the whole thing and couldn't follow it at all and had no idea what the story was meant to be about, even getting to the end of it. And that story obviously never went any further without naming any names, but I just couldn't work it out.
Yep, perplexing. Okay, so Peter, complete this sentence. Business owners would be able to get into the media more if they...
that helps, but I would have said if they knew how to sell their business to the media. Yeah.
Cool. James, if you had to hire a PR company, what would you look for?
Okay, we're talking about the pitching a story. Someone who's going to listen, and it would. I mean, like if we had time, it would be interesting to hear what sort of businesses people come from here, because often there's other people in the room that say you should write a story on that. So a PR firm that would listen. The second thing is lots of PR firms will do a lot of stuff for you, such as write strategies and put together plans and campaign documents and media kits and glossy brochures and all that other stuff. The best ones are the ones that do not mind doing that follow-up call and getting to know Peter or myself or whoever.
Yep.
And when they call, there's a guy from the RIA Group, which is realestate.com.au. When he calls our office, almost anyone will take his call.
Yep.
And why? Because he spent a fair bit of time getting to know us all, and he doesn't bother us with stuff that we don't want, and he's not afraid to make that call. He probably doesn't even need to write media releases anymore.
They just can
And
give
if he
you
was
a call.
a PR consultant that someone had to pay,
Yep.
he'd probably be not billing billable hours to produce all this stuff. He'd probably just be, making things happen.
Okay, so relationships. Yep.
Relationships. They've really got to be able to get on the phone and do that follow-up phone call and be able to engage.
Okay. James, last question. Who would you turn gay for? Michael Jackson or Bill Clinton?
Well, one of them looks far more like a woman, so that makes it a little bit easier. But,
So you go Michael?
but Bill Clinton now has more money, so
True.
hey,
So you're looking for a sugar daddy then?
yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be more Rupert Murdoch at this point in time.
Peter, who would you go for? Michael Jackson or Bill Clinton?
Oh, either would do me. So I'm making pants.
That was easy. Tony, yours. Which choice?
I'd prefer Warren Buffett because he's got more money, but probably Bill Clinton, I think. Just because he plays he plays a good round of golf.
True. Okay, for the room, hands up, Michael Jackson. One, only one. Okay, hands up, Bill Clinton. There we go. That was a bit reluctant, but there was more than one. George Bush. Okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to take 3 very quick audience questions. I know we're running over time, but I hope it's still been useful nonetheless. Okay, Ron, a quick question from you.
Then to approach a journalist or the editor, and whichever one it is, how do you find out who to approach?
Who to approach, James or Peter? Do you want to answer this?
Well, can I quickly say that
On the mic, please.
more broadly speaking, you've got in radio, you've got people like Neil Mitchell, who's the journalist, and there's someone who looks after him called the producer. And then in television, it's more complicated once again. But I think that if you're dealing with a smaller magazine, such as a B2B, you can be comfortable that you'll reach the editor, because the crew's not going to be too big. But Michael Short, who looks after all of the Business Age, no? Just the daily Business Age. He'd be a lot harder to reach than, say, the journalist who wrote about your area of expertise last week.
Okay, so do we ring up and ask, what's the best department to talk to, Peter?
Yeah, look, I can't stress enough that the thing that annoys me more than anything else, and will have me slam me down the phone faster than anything else, is when someone rings up to sell a story and it becomes obvious they don't even read the paper.
Yeah.
I mean, why should we sort of put effort into promoting your company if you're not going to put the basic research into to research ours, And so the point is, if you want to know, do you pitch it to the editor or the reporter? It depends on the publication. The Daily Age, they've got a huge staff and one editor who's very, very busy and sort of looks after lots of things. If you want to pitch a story there, it's sort of incumbent on you to have a look at the paper to see what journalist writes on your topic. And so if you're in telecommunications, you pitch it to the telecommunications writer in the paper. If you're in food, you'll pitch it to the food reporter on the paper. So you pitch it to the reporter then. On a smaller paper like the Sunday Age, where there's me and there's me. You'll pitch
Which
it to
me do we talk to? Okay, one more question. How's that?
A question to probably any three of you. I have a client that's a product developer. She was approached by the editor of the M magazine, and she was so impressed with the product she wanted to put it into the magazine like in 4 weeks' time. It was put in, and it was very exciting for this person because she's quite new in her business. She went and redeveloped her website in 4 weeks, and please ask the editor to put it in. It wasn't put in the website address. And also there was photographs taken of the actual product. Now, my question is, it was fantastic that she did get into the paper, but at the same time, she didn't get the exposure she was after. So I'm just curious, if you get approached, so it's a different angle, what is the best way to make sure that the information you want to get across to the audience is actually being conveyed in that piece?
Unfortunately, that's something you can't determine. That's called editorial independence. The paper's actually got a policy, or if it doesn't, it should have a policy not to have web addresses in there. If someone files a story for my section, the business section, with web addresses, which happened sort of last weekend, I think it was, or maybe the weekend before, I actually went through and took all web addresses out. Because that's not our role. This is editorial, it's not advertising.
You've got to be seen as being non-biased.
Yeah. And so my theory is if someone wants to find out the web address, easy to Google company name.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, we'll take one more.
In a magazine like Anthill, it might be quite different because it's a different model. For us, it's more of a we want to be sending people to certain places after they go there, but there is a balance. Some stories you just go, no, it would just be completely inappropriate, and then another story for us, it's important that we send the person to the website because that's part of our function as representing a segment of the community, as far as I...
Beautiful. One last question.
I've also got to say, the woman who took the photo, see, Peter may have called up and said, I think this is great, send me the photo, send me the press release, the whole bit. He's written the story. He's not had his thinking cap on that day, and he's put even the URL at the bottom. Then Peter's editor, if he had an editor, would then cut out that URL, and then suddenly someone else is laying out the page and they're squished for space. So then the photos get cut out, and the person who called your friend may have had the grandest ambitions because they thought it was fantastic and they thought the readers would love it and the pictures were going to be fantastic. But as it goes every step down that path, and I after every edition of Anthill is produced, there's probably about 3 people that contact us to say that, oh, gee, couldn't have you got the the web address in or something. And when you're dealing with hundreds of stakeholders in every edition of the magazine, that's the people who are coming in, and then you've got the people who are putting it together. It's really impossible. It's a giant jigsaw.
Okay, one last question at the back, really quick.
Is the newspapers the same as James in terms of having your kind of preferred suppliers? Like if you, in your game, you got your mates and that sort of stuff, and you know if that person's contacting you, they're not going to give you any crap, you pretty much know it's a good story. Do you kind of, instead of us trying to contact you, we just might find the right people that you deal with and then let them filter us out whether we've got a good story or not. Like in a trusted source, in my industry I have trusted source. James from I'm going to say, yeah, I'll listen to James. Would it be better for us to actually do a bit of research on who regularly gets stuff and who you trust?
I can't speak on behalf of all the journalists here, but I trust people like yourself before I trust publicity people. I'm sorry.
There's good reason for that.
But seriously, I mean, PR people are there and they play a role, but their role is to spin, and their role.
Do you have regular publicists who contact you? You know good people in publicity.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, and look, there are some good people who, yes, I do take the phone calls from, but I also take phone calls from sort of people who I don't know. Yeah. The people who I don't take phone calls are from the bad PR people who are just, wasting time.
Okay, and on that note, was that useful? Yes, give these guys a huge round of applause. Now,